Setting the agenda. Good evening, I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching. Restore Britain seems to be making and setting the political agenda on the right of centre in this United Kingdom. And I wanted to comment on a few things that I've seen going on this week. So that's what we're going to do in this video. There's many people in the online discourse and some pundits in the media that are attacking Restore Britain, and they're attacking them rather fervently, both personally and on TV shows on GB News and Talk TV and whatnot. Basically, they call Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain a bunch of political extremists. I want to disassociate and dissuade you from those sentiments. I don't think that that's true in the slightest. Millions must go, mass deportations is a must, and even Reform UK are singing and dancing to this tune now. But they have had to be drug to that position, and it's not the authentic position of the party in my view. Now, we have pundits who I used to have a lot of time for, like Melanie Phillips, saying that Rupert Lowe is quite extreme. Now, I want to bring up some information. This is straight from the horse's mouth, and I'm going to read through it. Lowe has pledged to ban Muslim and Jewish ritual slaughter, the burqa and Sharia courts, has proposed not only the mass deportations of illegal immigrants, not only in addition to deporting legal immigrants who refuse to speak English, don't work, claim benefits, live in social housing or actively hate us, but also dual nationals who have done nothing to stop the grooming/rape gangs. So a wife who knew her husband was involved but said nothing can go back to Pakistan, apparently, even if she holds a British passport. Yeah, what's the problem with that? That is not a extreme position. If they've got another country to go to, they can go to that country. Rupert Lowe's personal attitude is no less objectionable. On the stump in Makerfield, he has confirmed he had once wanted to support illegal immigrants on a midge-infested island and let the midges do the rest. I've said something similar on this channel before now, and I'll say it again for the avoidance of any doubt. Any illegal migrant that comes to this United Kingdom should not be put in a house of multiple occupancy, a HMO. They should not be put in a 4 or 5-star hotel. They should not be put in disused army barracks. They should be put on a remote Scottish or English island with a tent, a bottle of water, and maybe some food if we're feeling charitable, maybe a loaf of bread. And then they can just be deported in due course. They have broken into our country, they have no right to be here. This is not an extreme position. This is a majority position that most people in the United Kingdom agree with, and the liberal media and legacy media are having a meltdown because they cannot understand that the usual attacks of calling us far-right racist, bigoted, xenophobes doesn't land and doesn't hit anymore. Alright? So Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain and myself, we're not extreme, we're actually moderates in my particular view. So back on to what's going on and the fallout that's happened this week between Restore Britain and Reform UK. So I'm going to get into that now. So regarding one point in that article, which is deporting migrants in social housing in the UK, apparently this is extreme, and also it's a policy point that is quite incoherent from Reform UK's point of view. A few months ago, Layla Cunningham went to Oxford Union and they were talking about the housing shortage in the UK. Not once did she mention that removing migrants from social housing in Britain would be a Reform UK policy. Not once. They were talking about potentially stopping benefits for migrants, but nothing about social housing. Restore Britain's position is clear. Nobody who is a migrant in the United Kingdom, not a native-born British citizen, will be entitled to social housing. That is a clear and that's a consistent policy point from Restore Britain. Now, in the past week or so, we've had Robert Jenrick on the airwaves and Zayed Yusuf on the airwaves, and they had a very public dispute, one being finance, Robert Jenrick, and one being Home Office, if they got in, which is Zayed Yusuf. And it came to a head on a show on Sky News. Trevor Phillips asked Jenrick a few questions about the policy, and he didn't seem to be very coherent on it. And then Zia Yusuf came on X and Facebook afterwards and clarified the position, and it was in direct contradiction to what Jenrick had said. So I'm going to play the clip now.
Dying to ask him about the rather public disagreement that you, Zia, had with your colleague Robert Jenrick. Let us just remind ourselves what Robert Jenrick said on Sky News.
Are you saying to me that a foreign person who is legally resident but lives in social housing will be deported under a reform government just because of that? They live in social housing.
Well, not exclusively because of that.
Well, that's what. But if you just said that's what you agreed with.
If they fail to meet our criteria because they're not at work or they're not working in as many hours, not earning enough money, then they won't be able to renew their work visa because ILR won't exist, and they'll be asked to leave.
Obviously, this came as a bit of a surprise, and Zia responded on X with this. So, Zia, I can't see this now, but what did you say?
Essentially, what Zia Yusuf said is, if somebody is in social housing, essentially, and they're a foreign national, they've already failed the criterion to stay in the UK as a foreign national, because if you're a foreign national, you shouldn't have to be in social housing. You should be able to afford to rent or buy private accommodation. That's what Zia Yusuf says Reform UK policy is now. So we're going to finish the clip. And see what he says to Bev Turner on GB.
That's a long way from here. You basically said this isn't reform policy. He's wrong. Okay, got it here. Robert Jenrick suggested foreign nationals and council housing would not automatically face deportation, but you, Zia, insisted anyone in taxpayer-funded social housing would fail reform's economic test and be removed. So, what did you wish to achieve with that X calling out your colleague?
All I was doing was clarifying what the reform policy was.
The reform position today. This is the thing, this is the benefit of having a political party to the right of Reform UK. It keeps them honest, and it makes them harden their rhetoric and their stance, and hopefully it brings the conversation closer to where we need it to be in Britain. But it also exposes a few things. There were already warring factions in Reform UK. You've got the people that want it to be Tory 2.0, and then you've got the faithful people like me, good people that are still with Reform UK, that wants actual genuine change. So you've got two factions within Reform UK, and this exposes the splits because there's no party discipline, the message is sloppy, and the policy changes depending who you speak to on the day when it's politically expedient. In short, exactly what you get with the Tories and with Labour, which is why they can't get anything through. There's no coherent narrative that the entire party is behind, and so you'll get a Labour government who can't get anything through, and you'll get a Tory government that can't get anything through, because they always pander to the centrist middle ground to try to keep everybody happy. Now, when you've got frontline politicians in Reform UK, like Zia Yusuf and Robert Jenrick and Leila Cunningham, and they all have different versions or visions to where they think they need the party to be for their local constituents, you're not going to get that coherent messaging, and you're not going to get that coherent party discipline, which is so important, especially for a party that's looking to change things. So when Zia says, well, this is our policy now, okay, will it be his policy next week? Will it be his policy next month? Will it be the policy at the general election? Can you trust a political party They cannot even keep its people that go on TV, its pundits, its talking heads, singing off the same hymn sheets.
Should he not know that?
Well, the thing that I was focused on was making sure, I mean, that tweet, when I tweeted it, had about 7.5 million views. And often you look at things going on social media and you don't really comment.
Yeah.
But I think right now it is important that the electorate and voters know what our policy is. And so that's exactly what I did.
Isn't it quite important also that your party members know what that policy is?
I want to be clear about this Makerfield by-election. It's not going to form a government. It's not going to set any political agenda. Worst case scenario, Andy Burnham gets back into Westminster and he's in the leadership contest for the leadership of Labour. That doesn't mean he's the next Prime Minister. Is anybody convinced he would actually win? And I've said, even if he became Prime Minister and leader of Labour, that just means they've got a vaguely competent person in. He's not a great politician. He's just great compared to the front bench of the Labour Parliament. Alright, that's damning with faint praise. The best thing that Andy Burnham would be able to do if he ever became Prime Minister is maybe mitigate some of the worst excesses of the resounding defeat that is heading to Labour. That's pretty much it. Alright? Panic. Okay? Don't panic. Okay? Let's just keep things reasonable.
Representatives.
Yeah, to be fair, my brief is home affairs. His is the economy, right?
But even if your brief is to be on the detail for the Home Office or Home Affairs, it would be prudent that all of your talking heads, all of your activists, and all of your politicians have a coherent party line that they all know. Alright? If you're constantly reacting to whatever Restore Britain is doing on a particular day, which is very clear from what's happened since the Makerfield by-election has been triggered, that is what you were doing, then it's going to dishearten a lot of people. And you look just like all the other politicians that have no conviction, and you'll say anything to anyone to win a vote. That's the issue. But I'll continue. We'll let the man speak.
And so my job is to make sure that people know what our policy is. So that's what I did. So this whole civil war spat, I mean, I'm sorry, that's entirely confected. And if you actually just read what I put in the tweet, it was not... all I did was clarify what our position is.
So this is the thing when people are attacking Restore Britain. Oh, you're splitting the votes on the right. You should stand down in the Makerfield by-election. Me personally, as a Restore Britain member, I was against it. But the local members decided that they wanted to do it. This is democracy in action. So again, when you get the talking heads say, Rupert Lowe should have not stood somebody in this election. Well, to be fair, it wasn't his decision. The local branch took that decision as it should be. Alright? Nobody's entitled to my vote. Nobody has a select piece of the electoral pie. Everything's to play for at every single election. The biggest winner at the last general election was apathy, people that didn't vote. Always remember that. And I'm sick of voting for the least worst option. You should be the same. We deserve a better class of politician, real people with real life experience. These are just my thoughts. Your mileages always may vary. Having Restore Britain as an active political presence is making Reform UK a better party. Because competition is best for everybody. Alright? Everybody's forced to up their game of competition and let the best party win. Now, I appreciate your time. Like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.